Welcome to this program of conversation. Okay, let me mute everyone first. That's it. I would request Sandeep to unmute himself and then we'll start.
Done, sir. Thank
Right,
you.
right. Welcome to our program of conversations. So happy to be able to welcome Sandeep Godbole to our program today. Sandeep is coming for the first time, so I must tell him that he's not uh, a stranger to Arthashris, I guess. He knows what Arthashri is all about. He may not know much about Arthashri Bangalore, which is where we are. And we have been having this program conversations for more than 4 years now. We migrated to Zoom when we found that we could not hold it in a physical setting. And that's when we started getting people from outside Bangalore, like Sandeep, uh, from all parts of the world for that matter. So I'm so happy that you are here and on a subject on which we have not uh, heard anyone speak so far. Uh, and a subject where we would like, as laymen, we would like to know a great deal because there's so much that's being talked about cyber security today. A lot of it is very technical stuff which we don't even understand. But as lay users, what do we uh, do to protect ourselves? Protect ourselves in terms of protecting the confidentiality of the information we have, including things like bank accounts or the mobile phones and so on. And then, of course, there are much bigger issues that we read about in the newspapers today, like cyber wars. They say that the next theater of war will be cyberspace and not a physical setting, um, borders between countries, and so on. So, all these things have been talked about, and I'm so happy that we have an expert like Sandeep here with us. Sandeep Godbole has been a professional in this field for more than 20 years, and he's been involved in the work of not only his organization, of which he is vice president in charge of information security and assurance, but he is also deeply involved in the work of the International Professional Association on Cybersecurity, and he's been the president of the Bombay chapter. So, in that capacity, also, he's been making a great contribution to the development of the profession itself. Uh, I won't say anything more except that something not quite related to this. He is very possessive about his place of origin, about the place where he's based, that is Pune. And he is a heritage conservationist, and he talks a good deal about Pune and its heritage conservation also. That's another side of Sandeep Godbole, but we won't go into that today. Let me, without further ceremony, request Sandeep to take over and tell us all that he can in the next 45 or 50 minutes about cybersecurity. Sandeep, it's all yours.
Thank you so much. It is indeed a pleasure and an honor to be amongst so many enlightened people. And, you know, I'm in the midst of a gathering who collectively has so much wisdom that it's indeed for me something to cherish that I have been part of this team, this gathering. Uh, I hope I'm audible. In case I'm not, maybe you can indicate it with a frown or whatever best is the
You
right
are
signal.
audible. I get a message saying there is an echo of the talk. I don't know quite where it's from, but I'm not able to sense it. Uh, and I would also request all our members to feel free to use the chat box, and as you go along, write out your comments, write out your queries so that we can take them up during the discussion. Yeah, go ahead.
So I am unable to hear the echo, so I really don't know. But if it really gets bad, please feel free to interrupt me. I wouldn't want people to be uncomfortable, and when I'm speaking and it really bothers you. So in case the issue has not been resolved, please let me know. I can try and log out and log in again, but for me the audio is quite clear. uh, in this, as I'm scrolling through the participants here, I see a very uh, honored name, an honorable name here. Avinash Kadam, I see, has joined. He has been a senior person, and somebody who, a kind of father figure for our association. So when I'm in front of you today, a bit wary after 2 days of uh, a emergency security patch that is being applied worldwide, because the internet is hot with a vulnerability in that has been found on related to iCloud and a lot of other applications. So my day job has kept me busy last couple of days on that, despite it being my weekend. So with that frame of mind, with a preparation that I could have done a little better, and with Avinash Kadam in the audience, it's always a daunting task. But I'll try and attempt to be fair with what I do. Mr. Raja referred to me as an expert, and I felt very good about it. Uh, Good, not because it massaged my ego, but over the years, I have discovered a truth about being an expert in any field for that matter. So, by the very definition of an expert is a person who makes the same mistakes as everybody, but always has more sophisticated reasons to offer. So I'm one of you. I commit the same mistakes, but probably I can justify them better uh, than some of you. So I don't feel that real tension. So today, when we are talking about cybersecurity, the cyberspace, it's really something. The topic itself is so large that I know that I cannot do complete justice to it. But let me try and discuss some facets of what cybersecurity is all about. What do you mean by cybersecurity? So today's time is really quite apt to revisit the grand old Charles Dickens, and I always find people not related to that field always making fundamental statements about the discipline. And how true was Charles Dickens when he wrote his very famous book, A Tale of Two Cities, and when he said that it was the best of times, it was the worst of times, it was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. So aren't we living in the same era? We have so much. We have technology that is in front of us, that is making our lives so simple. Yeah, some years ago, when I was a child, I used to watch that uh, Star Trek. It was a very popular television serial. Of course, we were way behind America that time, so that was probably broadcast in the US decades ago, and came to us much later. But even then, the things like what we are doing, a video call, is what we had seen in Star Trek, and that was science fiction, and that is possible today. uh, so audio problem persists for all. I see a message there. uh,
Uh, yeah.
so let
Is there?
I
I'm not able to. I mean, I don't feel anything. Can someone else, some others also chip in and tell us whether they are having this problem? Hello, I've sent the message to everyone. Avinash Kadam to everyone. I don't face any echo. I don't face any echo either. So,
Okay.
is it something to do with? Particular computer, I'm not sure.
So then probably at my end I may not be able to resolve that.
Then
If if try logging off and logging on.
no, I don't think it's from your end because then everyone should be facing it.
Yes, yes.
Let's go ahead.
Yeah.
Um,
So is we are really living in an era where maybe 40 years ago it would have seemed like fiction, and things have been so simple. Like these days hardly anybody carries any cash with them, such convenience. We can meet our friends, relatives online, which is exactly what we are doing. We book our tickets online. We file our complaints online. We send messages online. So overall life has definitely become very, very, very simple for us, and hence in a lot of sense we are really living in good times. At the same time, there are, because of this we are seeing a lot of other problems coming up: frauds. We are seeing threats that did not exist earlier coming up. And I am confident that this is always going to be a cat and mouse game. Never ever are we going to get a perfect world. Never ever are we going to be living in an age of utopia. So the whole security paradigm uh, boils down to trying to find out the most optimal way, trying to find out the most optimal solution in what we are doing. So uh, in India we've really seen some really, really great progress happening. These are the figures given by the official agencies. These are the figures given by TRAI. 62 crore Indians having access to the internet. We could never have even imagined this kind of scale. Never, never. All of us, whether we like it or not, have a digital identity today. And the 131 crore Aadhaar entities, it's massive. Now, it simplifies so many things for us. It at the same time creates a digital identity for us, whether we like it or not. And when it creates something of value for us, it also creates an issue where those things of value have to be protected. So, by choice or by force, today all of us have become citizens of the digital world. Like, for example, let us take the principle or the concept of privacy. And when I talk about privacy, I'm talking about the concept of data privacy. India by itself as a society, and I'm not being apologetic about it at all, that is our culture. We were never a very privacy conscious society. And when I say this, unlike some of the experts, I say this without any feeling of guilt, because that's the way we have been brought up. That's the way our culture is, and that's the way we have accepted things till now. But things suddenly change when you create or you become a digital entity yourself. And issues like data protection, issues like data privacy, they come up. Issues that never came up in the earlier time. You are never too bothered about giving your information to a person who comes to your house for a census activity, were you? I mean, most of us weren't. At least I've seen my elders doing that. I've seen myself doing that. We weren't too much bothered about it. But when you enter the cyberspace, the entire setting changes. And why does it change? It changes because you have a possibility of going global. You have a possibility where it can be misused not just in your city, in your town, in your country, but globally. And therefore, all these aspects bring in a lot of issues along with it. I have been a great fan of this application called as Beam, the UPI application where you can pay money online. And I have preferred it. That's my personal choice. I have preferred it over many of the other applications which were at that time were merely payment wallets. You have seen what happened when demonetization happened, and we have also seen the kind of scale at which it has been growing. You have a cup of tea at a roadside tea stall. You buy some fruit or vegetables at a vendor, and at least in most of the larger towns and cities, the vendors are equipped and willing to accept the digital payment. Another great uh, innovation, I would say, that you see in India and you don't see it in most of the other countries is an application called as DigiLocker. This DigiLocker is a fantastic application where the government issues digitally signed documents, including your driving license, your LPG connection, your tax receipts, your qualification related matters, your insurance. All that is issued digitally and you can carry it in your mobile phone. And it's not just that you can carry it in your mobile phone. By law, it has an equivalence to a physical document. And it's not only now that it is happening. The IT Act, which was passed in 2000, the IT Act in 2000 itself, it established complete equivalence between paper documents and digital documents. The all of us have been scarred by the COVID pandemic that struck the world. But even in these times of darkness, in these times of despair, we have seen India rise up to the occasion, and the CoWIN app, despite some of maybe some initial glitches, has been a great success story. Otherwise, imagine administering vaccination to such a populous country, more about 100 crores of people to be vaccinated. How are you going to account for the doses? How are you going to be planned for the doses? So all this would not have been possible without the CoWIN app. So we see a lot of success stories. We see a lot of adoption of the digital technologies in our world today. So is the digital world mandatory? Now, if I'm not very comfortable with it, do I necessarily need to follow it? Technically or legally, no. But if you decide that you're not going to be part of this digital world, what it means is that you are going to be what in the United States. I'm sure somebody of you would have, many of you would have traveled there. You would have had friends there, relatives there. There's a community called as the Amish. They are seen more in and around Philadelphia. So they live the life of people who were living their lives in the 1700s and the 1800s. They use their horse carriages. They shun electricity. They shun automation of all kinds, and they're happy living that way. It's their choice. But the question to us really is that when the world is changing all around us, can we afford to be what I called as digital Amish people? And I'm so happy that I don't have to convince you that we don't have to be digital Amish, because all of us are connected online today. Had you been digital Amish, you wouldn't have connected in this manner. We wouldn't be having this conversation. So needless to say, we don't think we can be digital Amish in this world today. Now, if we cannot be digital Amish today, what is the issue? The issue is that having talked about a lot about the positive side of technology, there is also a lot of negativity out there. And I try to establish equivalence. I don't know how justified it is, that the way Leo Tolstoy said that, happy families are all alike, every unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. In a similar way, when we talk about security, if we say we are secure, we are all secure more or less in an identical manner. But every vulnerable or insecure user is insecure in her or his own way. Now, what does that mean? What I want to highlight is that when we talk about security or insecurity, security is a state where you are secure or absence of insecurity, but presence of insecurity is something that that is unique in its own way. And why do I say that? I say that because whom am I against when I talk about somebody impacting my security, somebody impacting my well-being online? Whom am I against? Am I against a single entity? No, I'm against a varied set of actors. And these varied set of actors have their varied motives and varied motivations. So a state actor may not probably be directly interested in me as an individual, but they may be interested in the adversarial country. But nevertheless, I am against state actors who are heavily funded, state actors who have a lot of resources on hand, state actors who are working in cohesion, in unison, and have a lot of power to do what they want. There's a very famous story of what state actors can do. Somebody, there is a lot of talk about the war being a cyber war and so on, the next war being a cyber war. This statement is partially untrue because the next cyber war has already happened. As long as about almost 10 years ago, there is a country called as Estonia. I know all of you would have heard about it. Now, in Estonia, there is a memorial to a soldier. The memorial itself is called as the Soldier of Tallinn, uh, based on the city where it is. Now, this memorial was in the memory of Russian soldiers who had fought in the World War. What Estonia did was it relocated that statue. When they relocated that statue, there was a barrage of internet activity against Estonia, and Estonia is a very wired country. When I talk about wired country, it means it's a very connected country. They were using internet for everything when the world was not using it. Now everybody is a wired country. And Russian hackers brought down the country to its knees by really attacking all their infrastructure. Another important story that is often told is that of a malware called as Stuxnet. Iran was developing its nuclear program at a place called as Natanz. At Natanz, they had a uranium enrichment facility. They had an atomic plant. And what was happening was they were not really succeeding. And they figured out that when the centrifuges were put into motion, they were behaving erratically. And that erratic nature was impacting those centrifuges itself, and it was derailing the whole Iran nuclear program. people were baffled. They tried out everything. They tried to change the machinery. They tinkered with the machinery. They did everything, but they didn't succeed. Ultimately, it dawned that what was impacting the nuclear plant was not the centrifuges themselves. The centrifuges were made to behave erratically by a malware called as Stuxnet that had gone into it. And it was such a sophisticated malware that no single person could have created that malware. Soon the needle of suspicion fell on well-known state actors and well-known suspects. So what I'm trying to point out is that state actors, heavily funded, can create havoc if they want to. You are also against hacktivists. You know, some of you might have heard of the names of entities called as anonymous. So they are hacker clubs who believe that they are doing certain things for the right cause. So it has happened that Olympics have been really disturbed by cyber attacks by hacktivists who believe that no, I'm doing this, I'm hacking into something, but I'm doing it for the larger good. Then you are also up against a kind of series of a category of people called as script kiddies who just know how to use the computer. And out there in the cyber world, there are so many tools that are readily available that I really don't need to use my brain to hack into somebody if that somebody is not secure enough. So these categories of people are called as script kiddies. They are kids, they are kiddies. They are kiddies with a script, and hence they are script kiddies. Then there are fraudsters who are sophisticated. I'm sure so many of you would have received enchanting emails promising you, the treasure of some person who has died without an heir, and they are so gracious that they want to transfer all their riches to you. You would have got so many phone calls claiming to be from banks, offering you credit cards or asking for your personal details. So you have fraudsters. And there is also something very interesting in cyberspace called as the darknet. I'm sure some of you at least would have heard about it. So darknet is that invisible part of the internet that is visible only if you wear your X-ray goggles. So in the past there were so many films, novels about people with a particular set of glasses. You can see what others cannot see, and so on. Special glasses and so on. So like that, there are certain softwares available on the internet using which you can access the darknet. So darknet is generally that part of the internet that is not generally seen to bona fide or normal users. And in this darknet, you have large markets selling illegal stuff. You can buy credit cards, you can buy illegal tools, you can negotiate in the darknet for all illegal goods. And there's a huge market out there. So you are against all these people. And this very mention probably highlights that uh, things are not all simple and secure. So then we approach the question that, okay, if we are not secure because of all this, what do you mean by security? So if you ask a cybersecurity expert, the cybersecurity expert will tell you that security is nothing but CIA. And this CIA stands for everything that assures you confidentiality, integrity, and availability. In simple English, what it means is that if you have measures in place that ensure that confidentiality of things that you don't want to reveal, but you want to use the internet, you want to use the cyberspace, and still you are secure, then that is an attribute of security. integrity, which means that, if you are confident that the way you are using the systems, the countermeasures that you are using, don't allow any illegal person to make any unauthorized changes, then you are ensuring integrity. And availability means that, okay, I can keep things confidential, I can ensure things are not changed, but if the resources that I need are not available to me, or if they can be blocked by somebody, or somebody can play havoc and bring down my systems or bring down the internet, then yes, confidentiality is ensured, integrity is ensured, but availability is not ensured. So for the technical person, this is what is defined as security. But uh, for an end user, for an ordinary user, for me, something that anything, all mechanisms that help me to operate in a manner that I continue to repose faith in the cyber world, that I continue to repose faith and work effectively, is security. For me, that is as simple as what security is for me. In any questions, or I can take questions in the end, because I'll try and be brief in what I'm talking about, so that we can have more time to talk. I'll try and finish my monologue in 10 minutes, so that we can have a dialogue.
Okay, fine.
So if you look at the threats, I just want to touch very briefly on the threats that are trending. So what are the threats that are trending? One huge threat that is trending in the last, and this is in the past 3.5 years, that we have seen this threat, called as the ransomware, where uh, a malware is any software that is bad, that is malified software is malware. So that software uh, descends on your systems and blocks your access from the system by encrypting everything, by not letting you access your system. And then it puts a condition that, if you want to access your system, pay me this money. If you pay me this money, I will let you access your systems again. So malware is a big threat. Personal data theft, where your uh, data is stolen from you. You might think that, okay, it is stolen from me, so what? So when it is stolen from you, it is also sold somewhere. That is why it is stolen from you. So personal data theft. Another very sophisticated attacks have been seen in the past 12 months, and those are called as supply chain attacks. Now, they don't really apply so much to individuals as to organizations. What uh, hackers saw is that a lot of their attractive targets, maybe targets storing government classified information, or sophisticated enterprises, corporations, they were protecting themselves adequately. Now, if I can't attack that entity, what hackers decided is, why not compromise somebody who has access to that entity, that organization? I will compromise them, and through them gain access to my ultimate target. So last year there was a very high profile attack, or not last year, in fact it was 2021 only, called as the SolarWinds. SolarWinds is the name of the company who makes network monitoring software. And that software is deployed in a large number of organizations, many of which are sensitive organizations. So what hackers did was, and the level of sophistication points to the role of state-sponsored attackers here. What the attackers did, they compromised the software developer or the product maker SolarWinds. They compromised the SolarWinds product, and wherever SolarWinds was deployed, including a lot of sensitive organizations, those sensitive organizations were exposed. And So just imagine the level of sophistication that is going into all these attacks. So we are seeing a lot of supply chain attacks now. Then we are also seeing phishing, which is for all of us, ordinary being. You get an email with a link, and people tell you to, the email entices you to click that link. So as a default, whenever you get a link, uh, try and train yourself to put on the red light and not click that link. uh, Always remember, now I know it sounds very scary, uh, but the email structure is designed in such a way that it is possible that, let us say I'm your friend, my name is Sandeep, and I send you an email from sandeepgodbole@yahoo.com. Now when I send this email to you, it might appear on your screen as coming from sandeepgodbole@yahoo.com, but in reality it has not come from sandeep.godbole@yahoo.com or gmail.com. This has actually been sent by from some other address, but the address that is being displayed in your system is some other address. And so we have to be very, very, very careful when we really click on any links or trust any email. And therefore, I want to quote a cyber guru. His name is Bruce Schneier. And he says that, if you think technology can solve your security problems, then you don't understand the problems and you don't understand the technology. Now, Bruce is a very respected person and understands the role of technology. What Bruce is not trying to discount the role of technology. If this is a technology platform that I am trying to protect, without technology, I cannot protect it. And Bruce knows it well. The point that Bruce is making is that if you believe that by deploying technology, you can absolve people of playing a role in security, then that is not to happen. So, I remember that old ad, so a motorcycle ad, I think it was Hero Honda, which said that fill it, shut it, forget it. It was trying to sell that motorcycle based on the mileage. The person opens the tank, puts in a petrol, shuts it, and forgets about it. So this put technology and forget about the risk is a approach that will not work, is what Bruce Schneier is pointing out. No matter what technology you put, people are going to be intelligent enough to circumvent that, and therefore there is no substitute for human diligence. There is no substitute for rational thinking. There is no substitute for common sense. And that is what Bruce is trying to point out. Otherwise, it would have been so simple to protect everything in this world, right? But it doesn't happen that way. The moment you put in something, there are cleverer people who circumvent that. And so we have to be very mindful of that. So what are the fundamental principles that we should always remember when on the cyber world? One of the principles is that never have a single point of failure, right? For example, if I know that I'm going to receive my password on that email, my email becomes my single point of failure. So unless I have a way, what happens if I forget my password? I can no longer access it. It becomes a single point of failure. The same with controls. You know, like even in the place you live, in the society you live, in the apartment that you live, you will see that when security is implemented, you would have a security guard, you would have doors, you would have doorbells, you would have security cameras. You don't depend on a single measure for protecting yourself. In the same way, when you try to think about protecting yourself, being secure, finding out a way in case you are attacked, don't depend on a single point of failure. And that's very important. And because of that, you need to layer how you put in your controls. The approach has to be, first prevent the event, that can go wrong. Secondly, detect if it can go wrong, respond to it, and recover from it. So let me give you a simple example. uh, in the techies world today, it is said, uh, antivirus is dead, long live the antivirus. And why they say is because attacks are so sophisticated that they can circumvent the antivirus. But nevertheless, you need to have that. So if your system doesn't have uh, the antivirus, you are not able to prevent anything at all. You are not able to detect anything at all. The next thing is, but let's say you still suspect something, so you have to respond. How will you respond? You will respond by either switching off the system, shutting down the system, trying to ensure that the adversaries don't have access to your data. So that is respond. Now, even if that fails, what will you do? What is of most value in your system? It is ultimately data that is of most value. If you lose that, then you are losing the most valuable asset. So if even prevention fails, detection fails, response fails, what do you have? If you are diligent enough, you would have a backup of all your data from which you are going to recover. So recovery becomes the next layer. So you try and think in this manner that no single mechanism is going to work for you, and therefore you have to uh, layer your controls. Simple tips. What are your countermeasures? Your alert mind is your countermeasure, firstly. So skepticism. They say, if an offer is too good to be true, then probably it isn't true. So don't believe on that. And at times I really find amazing that it's not the illiterate who fall prey, but people in high offices, people, educated people with a lot of education, people who have seen the world, fall for these kind of things. uh, Another very practical thing you can do is segregation. For example, you have your email address. Don't use your email address on social media and the same email address for your mutual funds or your banking transactions. Have different email addresses, so that if your social media address, which is most susceptible to being hacked, is impacted, your other more important email is not impacted. Or you don't disclose your important email addresses to other people who are interacting with you for trivial purposes. Prepare yourself that things will go wrong. For example, backup. Have a backup. If you have a backup, even if things go wrong, you can go and protect yourself. If you are sharing something very sensitive, even your MS Office, something as basic as that gives you uh, measures where you can encrypt that data. So if you're sharing something very confidential, encrypt it, but don't forget the password. Store the password somewhere in a protected place, so that if you forget that, it can be retrieved. Then use licensed software always. uh, don't fall prey to things that are free. If things are free, they are free because they're extracting something from you. Always remember that. So I know I can go on, and there is so much to say. I would stop here, because I know I have not really given a talk, but I've only highlighted some of the issues that you might be facing. I would rather get into a dialogue mode if there are any questions, so that it becomes more fruitful for all of us.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You have really opened up a number of issues uh, on which I'm sure there will be questions. I don't find any written out in the chat box, but uh, all our members are free to come in and just raise your hand or just unmute yourself, because you can unmute yourself. Uh, any participant can unmute himself. Uh, Let me start off with one or two questions. Um, you said don't.
Dahani.
Hello, hello. Okay, Padmini, you want to come in?
Yeah, and Natarajan wants to talk.
Yeah, please, please.
Good evening. Thank you very much for your very interesting lecture on cyber security. I have one question. There is a lot of controversy about usage of Aadhaar card. For example, Aadhaar card is being insisted by each and everyone we come across. Are these data being sold to other parties? And does that constitute a threat?
Good question. Before I answer that question, please allow me the indulgence of having a hot cup, because I'm facing some uncomfortable throat. So if you can just allow me that indulgence, I know it would be uncouth of me to
But-
have
But
tea
please
in
show me
front of
your
you.
Aadhaar
Plus,
card
please allow
first.
me.
But you have to show the Aadhaar card first.
Yeah. A good question. There are a lot of concerns that have been expressed, and these are more about data protection or data privacy. There are different views. uh, your first question was whether the data is being sold, right?
That's right. Whatever is extracted from me is being sold in the market by telephone companies, by power companies, for various people who are demanding this Aadhaar card.
Now, ultimately there is no control, because you're giving your Aadhaar number to so many people. The real value of Aadhaar, as per me, comes when you authenticate that Aadhaar, right? So let's say you know my Aadhaar number. Yes, frauds can still happen. Somebody can claim my identity.
Right.
But the real value of Aadhaar comes when you're authenticated, when you use your Aadhaar for authentication. For example, if you are registering a property purchase or registering a property sale, or you're using if you're filing your tax return and want to authenticate it. Now, fortunately, it is not that that insecure, because wherever it matters, there is a method of authentication. You get the OTP, and in India, the OTP has generally been used quite effectively. Now, having said that, does it prevent anybody from using your Aadhaar number and claiming your identity? No, it does not. So, frankly, giving a direct yes and no answer for me is very difficult. But as a user, I really don't think it is that serious an issue. Can I guarantee that data is not being sold by unscrupulous people? Nobody can give the guarantee in a country of 130 crores. But to me, frankly, it is not an issue to the extent it is sensationalized. That is my personal view.
Great. One issue is that we have this disease of self-attested copies.
Yes.
Now, when you give a self-attested copy of an Aadhaar or a PAN, is it more insecure? Does it add to insecurity?
Again, let us visit that question again.
Okay.
What's if I want to really play mischief? What stops me from taking a photograph, putting in some number, and claiming it to be an Aadhaar? Nothing stops me, right? So self-attestation, I don't really see how it adds to the issue. By self-attestation, if you mean just, are you referring to the signature, that kind of self-attestation?
That's right.
Yeah, so the receiver is saying that you have given it, and it is the identity of the person who is being used. But look at an alternate situation. This problem will arise with any document, with any identity document. Like, for example, somebody has access to your driving license, or somebody has access to your PAN card. So it is not something that is unique only to Aadhaar. If somebody wants to fake your identity using something, they can do it. But the beauty of Aadhaar is, and let us look at the positive side of it, that there is a mechanism to authenticate. It is not the see where uh, in technology they always talk about a multi-stage process. When you are using your Aadhaar, you are identifying yourself. Now that identity is not necessarily authenticated. That identity can be authenticated with your thumb, or that identity can be authenticated with a OTP. So your identity can be claimed. It is very difficult to forge authentication. And in most of the serious places, they do require some kind of authentication as well.
I was on a different point.
Yeah.
If somebody who is taking my Aadhaar information and wants to sell that to somebody else, if it carries my self-attestation, the buyer will be sure that it is my Aadhaar card.
Yeah. So a lot of people, what they do is that when they attest it, they also put a note there saying that, this document, and maybe all of us can do that. We should do it, that this document is provided to so and so for the purpose of for whatever purpose that is given. But again, there is no end to it. For example, using editing tools, I can edit your signature there, put it and paste it there. But
Yes.
these are some practical things we can think of rather than just giving a blanket signature. Nothing's the way corporate checks are issued. Like let's say people like me get only dividends of 100 or 150 rupees because that's what my investment is worth. So in that check of 100 or 150 rupees, the check on top contains a statement saying that not over 10,000 rupees or not over 15,000.
Capping it.
Yeah, they're capping it there. In a similar way, if you're giving a attested document, you can specify there that this is given to whom and for what purpose.
Can
so
this
that
be
can minimize it. That can minimize the risk. Again, nothing can eliminate a risk. Risk is always about minimization and optimization,
right,
rather than elimination.
Okay, I'll take
so
these.
can this be a hint to all the listeners of this video?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's useful to all of us. Yes. I'll take more questions are coming in. I'll take them in the order in which they are coming. Some may require only a very short answer. Here is one which probably needs a short answer. And from Mr. Muralidharan, I understand that the people who create the antivirus programs themselves create their own virus and release it. Is that correct? Is that
I mean, there are rumors like that, but again, how do you really prove that, and what does that prove? And frankly speaking, uh, today's malwares have gone much beyond uh, a normal virus, uh, and therefore these a plain antivirus today is considered insufficient, because what do the antivirus programs largely do? They look for something called as signatures. Now those signatures could be certain uh, indicative things associated with that malware. It could be file size, it could be something like that. As the next level of evolution, the modern anti-malware, and they don't prefer to call themselves as antivirus, they prefer to call themselves as solutions that are in the category of, they call themselves as EDR, endpoint detection and response, where they look for anomalous behavior on your systems. They don't go by the signature. they go by what is happening in the process, and if it finds that something strange is happening internally within your computer systems, then they flag it. But it's very difficult for me to answer whether uh, these people are themselves uh, creating viruses. The possibility is low, because please understand, look at the risk reward equation here. If there are so many viruses in the wild there that companies don't need to create more. There is enough nuisance out there. Secondly, for a really good company, look at the repercussions. If this information at all leaks, that company will be finished. Nobody will trust that company. And so, to me, again, it's a personal view, the plausibility of uh, reasonable large antivirus companies themselves creating virus, that possibility is pretty low, because they have plenty of viruses to negotiate with in the wild already.
I think a question which is related to this is very often we find that people offer software for instance, cleaning up and so on, free. And then you look at the Google review and then they say, don't buy it because that is malware. That will just get into your system and then destroy your files. How do you distinguish and how do you, uh, what level of confidence can you have in these offers?
It's a good question, and I don't intend to be a salesman for any company, but I'm just trying to simplify things for all of you. The first thing, uh, think in layers. Don't think that an add-on like a antivirus will solve your problem. It starts with the operating system. First of all, ask yourself whether you are using a licensed valid operating system. It costs a few thousands, I know, but spending those few thousands and buying a licensed copy is worth it. The reason being that you get proper updates on from the software company. Of course, for Microsoft these days, it's quite lenient in giving updates. But even then, no software, remember, is created perfect. All softwares have flaws. The benefit of using genuine software is that the moment the flaw is detected, there is a mechanism to patch it or correct it. So start from there. Don't start from the antivirus. Now, most of us are using Microsoft. Some very lucky people here might be using iPhone, Apple as well, iOS. iOS by itself is less susceptible to viruses, so a much lesser cause of concern there. If you are using Microsoft, and I repeat, I don't intend to be a salesman for uh, any company, but Microsoft has significantly enhanced its in-house product called as Microsoft Defender. And some of these, the security center comes free. So have that with a genuine Microsoft copy and a genuine Microsoft solution. You can be reasonably secure and reasonably sure that you have not played into the hands of some unscrupulous operator.
Right. One of the biggest
Because that
worry,
entire
yeah.
stack is, you have the OS that is clean and clear, you have the protection that is clean and clear.
Okay, thank you. One of the biggest worries is online banking transactions. How
Yes.
safe is it? How careful should we be, and to what extent, and how?
We have to be very careful, first of all. There are some things that we should always follow. A lot of times things go wrong because of the way we operate it. For example, always avoid operate or using your banking transactions on your handheld device. Is it wrong? No. Is it by its nature unsecure? No. But the size of the screen, the usability itself becomes so tough that when you're dealing with money, it's best to sit in front of a table with in a comfortable chair and do your transactions there. So accidentally, you're not doing something, or you're not, you by mistake, you don't commit some mistake that you don't want to commit. Secondly, today, most of the banks have got a good two-factor authentication. Uh, None of the banks, at least that I know of, rely only on the password. In case your bank is relying only on the password, when you do the transaction, it is a red flag, definitely. Change your bank is what I would say. Even in today's world, what is considered to be most secure is a two-factor authentication. What is a two-factor authentication? Uh, when a user is authenticated, or the identity of the user is determined not based on just one factor, which is very commonly a password, but in addition to that, it is something like an OTP sent on your mobile phone, then that is the mobile phone becomes the second factor. So it becomes a 2FA or a two-factor authentication. So if your solution has a two-factor authentication, 2FA, always you are much safer. So nobody can guarantee you anything. What if somebody clones my card? What happens then? Yeah, one case in a lakh, in 10 lakhs is always going to happen, in 20 lakhs. But so it is like, I stepping out of my house and slipping on a peel of banana skin. Nobody can predict that. But largely, with two-factor authentication, you are comfortable. Secondly, use reasonable passwords. Don't have your own name, your brother's name, your daughter's name, your father's name with something, and using that same password over and over again as as your password. Some simple tricks traditionally have worked. For example, I know passwords are difficult to remember. If you are very confident about it, use a very complex password, write it down somewhere. Even these days, because uh, you know your mobile phone is configured, changing your password even if you forget it is not so tedious. But if you are still not comfortable, write it down somewhere. But don't keep simple password, because there is a category of password attacks called as the uh, password spray attacks. What they do is, uh, they have a huge database of accounts, let's say a few hundred thousands, and they use some simple passwords, 123 dog, cat, etc. Now when I'm trying dog against 20 lakh password, 20 lakh accounts, out of that the possibility of one account succeeding is very high, right? So protect yourself against these password attacks. The general rule of thumb is never use dictionary words, because how do the password attacks happen? They have dictionaries, huge dictionaries, which they combine and they play against your account. But if the simple answer is internet banking safe? Yes, internet banking is safe if you use it correctly. uh, don't forget the human element. First thing to do is ensure that you are interacting with the correct site. If you are clicking on some link and going to a banking site, nobody can guarantee that it is a genuine site. Many of you know already that you have to check that icon, the lock which comes there, which shows that it is a encrypted communication. If you click on that, it shows the certificate. It becomes technically quite complicated, but at least ensure that there is a lock. Don't go to any banking site by clicking a link. Type the name of your bank, and if there is two-factor authentication, the possibility of internet banking being unsafe is pretty low, because even if somebody compromises your password, nobody knows what your one-time password is or the OTP is. So never share your OTP. So the straight answer is yes. Internet banking is safe, but when used vigilantly. Because if I say safe, that can bring in some level of recklessness. We cannot afford to be reckless, but when used correctly, internet banking is definitely safe.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That was very, very useful, really illuminating. A couple of more questions. Here's one. A question regarding fingerprint authentication used by some of the smartphones. Can this be used for fraudulent purposes?
Uh, in theory, yes, it can be used, but practically it is not so simple, because when you use your thumb, it is not just that image that is replayed there. There is a way in which, based on your thumb, there there is some information that is extracted from there. But if you are uncomfortable with that, please don't use it. Personally speaking, though there have been stories in the past of how people have used the thumb, created using plaster of Paris or a chewing gum or something, created an image, replayed it. Though in theory it is possible, it is not it is not child's play. So generally it is safe, but if you are not comfortable, don't go that route, is what I would say.
Okay. One more. As per the latest RBI guidelines, another number needs to be created for all debit credits, and all these numbers need to be used from 1st January 22nd, 22. How safe is this being made mandatory to prevent fraud? That's the question.
Let me admit, I'm ignorant about this circular, and I need to study it. So but even this kind of a thing is there in Aadhaar. So what probably they're trying to do is they're trying to shield your uh, original credit card number. If that, but let me admit, I'm ignorant. I don't want to say something about which I don't know. I'm really sorry about this.
So, one of the problems with us senior citizens is going back to your earlier response about keeping passwords safe on a piece of paper. You see, one of the problems with us is that we even forget where the paper is uh, and to look for
I
it.
have a book.
And so, no, to look for the book is also difficult sometimes. So, sometimes we tend to, store it in the mobile phone, in the notepad or something like that. Is that safe?
uh, well, there is a category of softwares, but I need to check whether there is a free category available that is respectable, called as password vaults, right? So you can store your passwords in those password vaults, but frankly, I need to research whether free password vaults are available. I doubt that. So the rule of thumb is anything that is stored in clear text. Clear text means whatever is not encrypted by using an encryption solution, that is considered to be unsafe. At a minimum, uh, there are certain rules to be followed. uh, it reduces the risk to some extent. Never store the password on the same device from where you are going to use it, right? So don't give a ready-made notepad file on your computer, which somebody who has access to your computer, he has the password also there, he or she also has the account number there. So try to segregate it. At a minimum, at a minimum, try and encrypt it with at least the encryption that is available in MS Office. MS Office has a feature to encrypt uh, your files. But I would rather, that's my personal view. uh, Storing it in a safe place is much easier than trying to keep it on the computer, and that too in clear text format. Because if you write it on a chit and bury it deep inside where only you know it, it's not going to be easy. Having said this, today's if we are talking about banking transactions, today resetting a password, if you have your mobile number uh, configured with your account, if you have your debit card with you, if you are very very protective with the physical custody of these things, then most of them allow you to reset your password using an OTP, using your credit card debit card details. So that shouldn't be too much of a worry for you, but don't compromise on the complexity of the passwords for the fear of forgetting it. It is you can afford forgetting the password and putting you to yourself to some level of discomfort rather than keeping a simple password that can be compromised easily. So you use simple tricks, write it down somewhere. Though a security person, Avinash Kadam, if he's still on the call, he will scold me after the call, because security people scoff at somebody uh, who write down their password, because that's the first thing they tell not to do. But I'm being unconventional and practical. Write it down somewhere where nobody else can get it, somewhere deep inside.
Okay.
But don't get too perturbed about this. Today with the mobile phone and other second factor authentication, things are not that complicated to change the password as it was earlier.
Is Avinash Kadam here? He is still here. Mr. Kadam,
So I'm going to get a earful from
may I,
Avinash.
may I, may I request you to unmute yourself for a second? Because we've heard so much about you from Sandeep.
Avinash doesn't seem to be
He
here.
doesn't want to come in.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, he's also, yeah, okay.
Or maybe he's out. He's not able to. Yeah.
He's probably out.
Yeah. It's been
Yeah, we see
wonderful.
a hand both physically and in the software,
Yeah. One raised.
Padmiji
One
Yeah, I
Nataraj.
raised.
just going back to your saying don't follow a link. I pay my electricity bill through Airtel. I have the Airtel app on my phone, and I have linked my debit card to that. So is that safe? Like, I pay my electricity bill, my telephone bills, my not only Airtel but even things like BSNL. Or is that safe? Is I am following, or when you get an intimation on your email saying click here to check your bill and pay. That is a link I'm following, right?
I'd like to add to that. Most of us do that. For convenience of payment, we use
So is that safe? That's
Amazon
what I want to
Pay or
ask you.
Phone Pay, Paytm, and so on. And that is linked to a bank account.
No,
So
okay.
we use that safe.
So
I'm
are you
basically worrying
referring
about this.
to using an app that directs you, or because uh, Mr. Raja referred to using these wallets for payment? Using
No,
these
I'm
wallets,
using an app. I'm using the Airtel app to pay my bills, or
okay.
only Airtel, of course, because Airtel is my service provider anyway.
So again, if you're comfortable with that app, go ahead. I don't want to create panic. But if
Okay.
you don't know that app, or if you have not been using it,
No, I've been
most
using
of
it.
the providers, they have their own websites, they have their own payment engines. You could use those. But if you are using this and if it's a trusted app, yes, uh, please go ahead. By itself, clicking by itself is not an issue.
Hmm.
Clicking on a malicious link is an issue, because it
No,
can take you
from
elsewhere.
my email, it's okay to click on to be Bestcom and then go. When I get a bill from Bestcom or BSNL, it reminds me that you owe this payment for this month. and they give you all these boxes where you click, and then you go on to that and it takes you to their particular website or
Website.
whatever.
Okay.
That
So
is that safe?
that is not safe if you get a fraudulent email and it directs you to a fraudulent site. The fraudulent site will look exactly the way a genuine site looks. Now,
So
if
then
it's
how
a
do I
genuine
know?
mail,
How do I know that it's genuine?
good,
Sorry,
good
I'm
question. No,
I'm pulling
it's
the
a
leg
very genuine
under
question.
you.
Yeah, it's a very genuine question.
Yeah,
As I
I get it
said,
every month. I get it every month. So I presume that it is authentic.
yeah. So just because you get it every month may not necessarily mean it is authentic.
It's authentic. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And most of the providers have features, have facilities to really enable you to pay online. So instead of clicking that link, if you go to the site of the provider
Mm.
and make the payment, you can still make the payment.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I got it. I got it.
But clicking on an email link is the riskiest thing you can do.
Okay. And one more
Okay.
thing I want you to please make this very firm to all the listeners in this group. We are so very fond of this is free. Tata is giving you a free this refrigerator. Air India is giving you 50% this because you're a senior resident. We get these WhatsApp forwards all the time. However much we shout and we yell and we say, please don't forward this because you're compromising my security as well as your own security. Nobody listens. It's just an automatic bang and you press it and forward it to the whole jing bang lot. So please tell something frightening to all of them about this so that they never do it in their lifetime again.
No, I
I'm
mean,
sorry, I'm being wicked.
everything.
I'm sorry, I'm being wicked.
No. See, all malware ultimately, most of the malware comes in that way. When you click a link, probably you might not realize anything has happened, but in the process, if you download something, if it's a bad actor, that bad actor is not going to tell you that I'm downloading something bad, right? So in the background, this is what phishing is all about. If you download something by mistake, and as I said, the golden rule is, if something looks too good to be true, it is not true.
Yeah, but we all love things, we still think there's kindness out there in the world. That Tata is kind and he's going to treat me to a refrigerator or
No,
a
at
washing
times there are
machine.
genuine offers also, but again, it's always, and that's the difficult thing, right? When Bruce Schneier said technology can't solve your security problems, this is what the person meant. You know, how do you differentiate? These are like real life problems. Like there are two people in front of you. How do you know whether to trust that person or not? That there are no golden rules. It's the sum of your judgment, your knowledge that you have gained over the years. So a lot of time judgments are like that. There are rules that we should follow, but again, being vigilant is the only thing we can say, because fraudsters have enough tricks up their sleeve.
Okay.
That's why they are there where
Thank
they
you.
are, and that's why
Thank
where
you.
we are.
Thank you. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Uh, I'm, I didn't quite realize how quickly time has flown and that we have already consumed all the time that we had given to ourselves and overshot uh, the time limit. Thank you very much, Sandeep. It's been an absorbing evening, uh, so full of illuminating truths that we were not aware of, and many things which we shall now be very careful about. I mean, I, for one, used to click on these links to pay my bills, use several apps to pay my bills. I should be careful about them. Two factor authentication, however inconvenient it might seem initially, is something which I think I shall adopt. And your tips about never using dictionary words and keeping the password safe on a piece of paper. And I mean, never uh, use the password and use on the same device from which you are doing the operations uh, and so on. And not only financial but other transactions, the kind of precautions that we need to take uh, in dealing with these all the cyber security. Thank you very much indeed. I
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure, and frankly, let me admit, I just introduced multiple issues here, facets. It was not like a session, because it's such a vast topic that unless you really prioritize and define it in a very narrow term, talking about it becomes very challenging. So I'm not sure whether you found it useful. It was up to your expectations, but I tried to be sincere. Is
it
all
could
I
have
can
gone
say.
on and on. We could have had a half day seminar or a full day seminar, and we would still uh, come up with questions to you.
Sure.
Uh, it's been very useful, very illuminating to us. Uh, and we, as I started by saying, we were looking at the basics. We were people who wanted practical solutions to the problems that we were facing, and that's what we got from you. Thank you very
Thank you
much
so much.
indeed.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye. All the best. God bless you.
Thank you so
All
much.
senior citizens from
Yeah.
Athasri. Yeah. And I hope someday when you come to Bangalore, you would be able to visit us.